Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well, hope you're all doing great, and that you're all having a wonderful day. Side note, I feel like a bit out of it, like tired but also like energetic, just so you know, in case during the course of the video you're like, is he okay? I don't really know exactly what's going on, but it feels quite odd. Very big thank you to everyone who leaves a like on the video. It is a free and easy way to help out the channel. Very big thank you to everyone who leaves a comment as well. I see a lot of you. I'm sorry that I cannot respond to everyone, but a very big thank you for helping out the algorithm. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Yeah. The last couple of videos have more or less revolved around a bull run, bull market, bull season, bullish, if you will. A lot of people have, I mean, this is quite normal, I would say, especially for around this point in the cycle. We've been receiving a large number of price predictions, as per usual, discussing where a lot of people believe the market is going. We have seen our fair share of $150,000 Bitcoin, a good amount of 200,000, more or less a lot more, $250,000 Bitcoin price predictions for this year. We have the pendulum for Ethereum anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000. What we have also been hearing a lot more about as of late has to do with cycle length. Without having to go too far into it, if at any point you might have missed a couple of videos, it's understandable. A lot of the industry leaders, more wealthy individuals within this space, have basically come forward stating that cycles are over with. If this sounds familiar, it's because they're all announcing the exact same thing. The idea behind it is that since we got Bitcoin ETFs, it appears as if that might have actually rattled the entire structure of the market, going up for 1 year, falling down for 3 years, going up for 1 year, falling, that kind of thing, and that we might apparently actually be witnessing a cryptocurrency market restructuring rebirth, where cycles not only are over, but we might see just a continual movement up always, for, in this case, this discussion in Bitcoin's price. This is very popular news. We had something like this at the beginning of the year. Someone mentioned it. We all said, okay. But now we have about like 15 to 16 different people saying that according to their charts, according to the money that's moving into the space, we normally wouldn't see any money like we've seen. I mean, even the billions of dollars moving into the market until around now. We would see some movement in January, the market would go up, but by the time we get to autumn, by the time we get to winter, that's when we have the news, you know, like on traditional news networks. Bitcoin just hit this amount, it's up by, you know, that kind of thing that gets retail interested. Apparently a lot of people say nope. It looks like we're going to continue on the course that we are on. The CEO of Blockstream, his name is Adam Back. We had news about him earlier this year. Him and Samson Mow, they're basically believers in a soon-to-be $1 million Bitcoin. And on top of that, basically this idea that cycles are no more, Bitcoin is far too wealthy and powerful, and therefore is going to kind of continue on its course upward. Adam Back, who has occasionally made headlines with allegations of being Satoshi Nakamoto, who cares, made remarkable assessments on Bitcoin's current market cycle. In a social media post, Back reminded that the previous halving cycle began in May 2020 and concluded in March 2024. Back noted that the current market cycle began in April 2024 and predicted that, according to historical data, this cycle will end in March 2028. You heard that correctly. According to BAC, taking into account a 4-year gap from the previous cycle peak, the likely peak this cycle could be seen in the last quarter of 2027 or the first quarter of 2028, essentially alluding to the fact that what we're seeing will continue until the next halving. However, some analysts argue that the actual peak occurred in November 2021, with the 4-year period concluding that this cycle would essentially be over in November of 2025, which goes lightly-esque back to what we were talking about. September, October, movement upwards. November, December historically being the moments where we begin to see the market becoming a little bit more shaky, if you will. He said, and I quote, "It doesn't make sense to me to think that the bull market will end in November 2025. That is 3 months from now," Back said, adding that although there may be intermediate corrections, new all-time highs could be seen in the coming period. For those of you who don't remember what Samson Mow said, Samson Mow is the person who said Godzilla candles and Omega candles. And I would say this in their not so much defense, but Blockstream is, I've mentioned this previously, and you should know this by now. Blockstream isn't often in the news, but they are far more significant than you could actually imagine. They are, for lack of a better term, the equivalent of the Cardano Foundation, the Ethereum Foundation, like that kind of thing. They more or less kind of are like the harbingers, the ones in the very front who say and propose things that happen to Bitcoin. They're kind of like the protectors of Bitcoin. I know that sounds a bit intense, but that's basically what they are. So I think it's typically safe to assume when they speak, people do pay attention, as this was, of course, popular news. But also, they literally know the inner workings of what's happening, who is buying Bitcoin, who's dealing with it, what companies, what countries. They get into contact with these people. So, yeah, we are either way. This is going to be a very interesting cycle, if it ends or not. We have had, it's around 25% now, who are arguing that no, this time will be no different. For some reason, in winter, northern hemisphere winter, we are going to experience some kind of a shake. The market will begin to fall, previously as we've seen in other cycles. The rest of the camp at this point is kind of the idea that any dips, if you remember, would be short-lived. Any price movements down would be accumulated quite rapidly by the hundreds of public companies, the multitude of private companies also buying, and also the countries. It's not just the United States. I've seen people before talking about it in the comment section. You clearly have missed around 186 videos. No, there are dozens of countries who are announcing they're beginning to mine. They're creating their own little thing on the side where they're buying up their own amounts of Bitcoin. And the other ones who we've heard from previously before, the generalized idea is if Bitcoin looks like it actually is going to $1.5 million, if someone relinquishes it, these companies in these countries are going to buy it. There's a lot more money to be made. By the time we get to $1 million Bitcoin, we've already heard a lot of these people talking about, a $22 million Bitcoin, a $43 million Bitcoin. So the idea of selling and it kind of remaining there is not going to really be a thing. So we'll see. We either get to have our normal fantabulous bull run that typically expires when it is cold outside, The other side basically being we would see a dip, and then we would kind of see prices just kind of continue to go up. I said it before, and I'll say it again. If this should be abundantly clear to everyone by March, April, May of next year. We have thus far not had any bull run continue for that long into the next year. If we get to April 23rd, 2026, and Bitcoin is up by another 7%, well, it's time to hunker down, because that means prices are going to basically continue going up essentially forever. That's the, he's not just another analyst. He's literally the CEO. If you get a chance to look at what Blockstream is, it's quite, it's almost like Blockstream is kind of like the BlackRock of crypto. Yeah. Okie dokie. Let's move on. Also in EULAR news. It wasn't popular, but anything around this topic tends to be EULAR, if you will. A South Korean crypto custodian called BDACS, BDACS, has launched institutional custody support for XRP following its February partnership agreement with Ripple. South Korea and Japan have a thus far long history with the cryptocurrency space. South Korea and Japan, as it were responsible for the crazy price movements that we actually saw in 2017. They held the majority of the transactional history and movements that we saw of cash. And they also were the first countries to be like, whoa, cool it there, and give cryptocurrency regulations, because they knew or foresaw that this was going to be a gigantic market. Ripple, for a number of years, was basically shunned, if you will, because of the US SEC within the United States. So they kind of did business elsewhere, and they did a large amount of business within Japan and within South Korea, working with regulators there to try and get things moving forward. So this is why sometimes you will see a lot of Ripple news does revolve around banks in Asia in some form or capacity. A number of years ago, there were not even rumors, but we got a lot of information that banks, institutions would begin to custody crypto, which is a major thing for whatever reason. And initially, it always begins with institutions. So if you have 20 million worth of crypto, they will work with you first. And then once all the rich people are full, it falls down to us, and then they begin to custody retail coins as well. The move provides institutions with regulated access to one of the world's most actively traded digital assets. The rollout, announced via BDAC's Twitter account on Tuesday, enables institutions to securely store and manage XRP using Ripple Custody, Ripple's enterprise-grade solution for custody. Right, cool, awesome. They said, we're thrilled to offer custody support for XRP, one of the most popular digital assets in Korea, to our institutional clients. This launch strengthens our long-standing partnership with Ripple and underscores our commitment to the Korean market, end quote. This is why I've noticed a lot of times if Ripple was in the news, this was, of course, years ago, and they were, we had a large amount of news surrounding Ripple doing business elsewhere. A lot of people, for whatever reason, felt that that wasn't adequate enough because they only wanted them to only do business within the United States. And then years later, you look back on it and go, oh, yeah, it does make sense. Like, that was kind of the logical conclusion years ago when we were talking about it. If you're not going to be allowed to work with US banks or institutions, you go elsewhere. As I've mentioned 1,000 times, the US isn't the only place that has money. If you haven't looked at the wealth or the levels of wealth in South Korea and across Asia, you have been around for the last 15 or so years. So yeah, cool. This happens every now and again. We get some kind of news like this. I think the last big institutional news that we had with Ripple was about, BSI. Is it BSI? No. BIS? Anyway, whatever that large banking consortium is within Japan, and apparently they're integrating XRP into their systems, and a number of these banks within Asia are beginning to create their stable coins, and they're going to put them on top of the XRP blockchain. So yeah, there's a lot always going on with Ripple and XRP since the lawsuit is officially over now, as we heard for the umpteenth time a couple of weeks ago. I assume by the end of the year, we should have some kind of news about which banks Ripple is working with within the United States, like legally this time, because they weren't allowed to actually do so. So very interesting times ahead. No reason to actually read anymore. I think you get it. They partnered with a large institution. They're going to be custodying XRP. I assume more places will be doing so in the very near future, just simply for whatever reason. I think this will ramp up quite a bit when XRP staking becomes more of a thing, because this is what a lot of the custodians are now kind of getting into, this idea of holding it for their clients, and everybody wants passive income. Yeah. I think that's going to do it for this video, everyone. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. It is going to be very interesting to see if cycles are broken. Do you understand what that's going to mean, like, for crypto investors to know that there really isn't like a jump off point anymore? That like you kind of just put your money into it and you just kind of stay like forever, in essence. I know it sounds, this is usually one of the mantras for crypto, is you kind of just, park your money and walk away, that kind of thing. But like, no, imagine when that is like all you have to do. I'm telling you, by the end of the year, when we get a 2%, 3%, oh my gosh, staking for Bitcoin through some crypto exchange, and if prices keep going up, it's going to be interesting. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.